Welcome to Syntax. Today we have producer Randy on the show. I pitched him on this episode. I was like, hey, Randy, can you come on and tell us how to sound and look good on video and audio for, and I just said 10, 100, and $1,000, meaning that as the professionals, we need to look good. It amazes me that we went through a whole pandemic of online conferences and people talking to each other on Zoom every single day. And most people still look and sound like crap. It's not as easy as just buy a really expensive camera, because there are a lot more things you can do in how you use them that will make you look and sound good. So this is one for you. Welcome, Randy. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. This is going to be fun. Yeah, I'm stoked. I have this broken down into 3 kind of sections. So there's the audio tips, the video tips, and then we'll go through some packages that people could purchase if they're interested in kind of upping their game at home.
Okay.
Right
and
on.
as far as looking good, do you have any makeup tips or how to dress tips? Do we have any of those?
I don't typically wear any makeup, but I'm sure some people would say I should probably have some D shiner on my face because I get pretty glossy. So.
Oh, that's good. So for anyone who doesn't know, Randy is the producer of Syntax. He turns the knobs and does all the planning and all kinds of good stuff. And you also have a YouTube channel where you do a lot of audio gear, right?
Yeah. So I review mostly microphones. I was doing some interfaces and stuff like that, but pretty much just microphones. So I'm talking audio, getting in the weeds about really nerdy stuff. And I love it. Honestly, it's a nice creative outlet to be able to just make videos that I would want to watch about really, really nerdy stuff.
Yeah, and you do it with great presentation, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Which should be no surprise given that we hired you to be our producer. But, you do such a good job on your channel that I love watching your videos when they pop up.
Well,
Let's
thanks.
kick it off with
that.
the audio stuff first and foremost. I think this is a big thing for people still to this day is, man, you get on a call and they're just using their laptop mic, or just in general, maybe they're being invited to be on a podcast and they use their laptop mic or worse, their AirPod mics, which are these little tiny diaphragms inside of here. Do they even have a diaphragm in there?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Very small. Yeah.
So let's talk audio. Give us the rundown, man.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in learn the tools, learn the tips, learn the sort of the practical component of it and actually the physics of it as well. And that way you can kind of figure out what rules you want to break. Basically, you're informing yourself with all the evidence so you know which rules you can break for your setup. And if you're looking for learning all the info that you can to break some rules, you might want to check out Sentry. Scott, I'll throw that one over to you.
Yeah. If you want to break some rules in your code, you just may end up with some bugs, and that can happen. And to solve those bugs, you want to head on over to sentry.io/syntax. Sign up and get 2 months for free. And let me tell you, it gives you this perfect interface for being able to not only find your bugs, but also solve them. It lets you step through them. It lets you understand how many people this is affecting, who specifically it's affecting. You can even get a replay to see how that error happened. It's just an amazing tool all around. We use it every day over here at Syntax. So check it out, sentry.io. We'll have the link in the show notes.
Is this the first time that the guest has thrown that to you?
Yes. Yes. Randy always has to make sure we get our Sentry read in there, and if we forget, then he's chasing us around for it. So he's not going to have that in this episode.
Yeah. If you forget, I'm trying to splice it in at some point.
We did have a guest that tried to do the ad transition. Do you remember that, Wes?
Yeah, who was that?
There was a guest who came to us beforehand and said they wanted to do it and then gave it a whirl. I do not remember who this was. I'm so sorry. I'll try to look it up, see if we can find that. But yeah, that was hilarious.
Sick. I'll add that to the show notes as well. But yeah, let's jump into the audio crash course. So the biggest takeaway that I could give people today, the one thing that I hope they can leave this episode with is understanding signal to noise ratio. This is the one thing that fixes just an abundance of audio issues. Also fixes things like audio issues in your space, audio issues with your equipment. It's kind of like the go-to audio technology principle that we really like to enforce. So signal to noise ratio is basically the signal being your voice in most cases, or if you're recording music or something like that, it's the instrument. And then noise is everything else. It's the dogs barking down the street. It's the cars going by. It's the HVAC system in your house, even things like reflections within your space will cause noise. And then we have things like electronic noise too. So these are things like not enough power to your microphone. This is a really common one, especially people who are using like USB hubs. They tend to be pretty bad at powering microphones sometimes. So sometimes your microphone won't get enough draw. It'll cause a hum in your audio. That's kind of annoying. Also, other issues, power, grounding issues, and RF. So things like cell phones getting picked up by your microphone. That happens quite a lot as well.
Yeah, remember the old days where you would hear
Yes.
before you get a phone call? That was the best.
With those old Motorola like candy bar phones, the bassist in my band found out his bass pickups picked up the noise from the cell phone and then ran it through a looper and ran it through some reverb and made it sound like outer space noises. But it was just like the beeping
cool,
from
though.
his phone. Oh yeah, he was like that. He's now the guy that works on Wolfpack's stuff. So
sick.
He went on to big things.
Yeah.
I know personally, especially because we interview a lot of people on here. One of the big things with noise is, like you mentioned, like HVAC or fans, right? Like I feel like people don't realize that that's something they should be turning off, or if you have a loud HVAC. I used to turn off the HVAC at my last house, which was like 100 years old because it was super noisy. And the insulation was so bad I would just be roasting while I was recording. But it was worth it for the noise, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I have a preset for your mini split that you have on during the winter. So I flick on a preset to get rid of that. Yeah.
Nice. I don't turn it off in here because I would be, it would be a bad situation. But that's interesting. So you have a preset in what, like a VST, specifically which denoiser?
Yeah, I use Isotope's voice denoise. And basically what I do is capture a section of silence. So whenever you're not speaking, I'll capture a section of that. And then that basically runs it trains the tool what the noise looks like, and then it will take that out of all the parts that are your voice.
Interesting.
So I use that on a lot of videos when I hear it, but usually I'm just putting it on sort of a base level.
Yeah, we've had a couple of guests that are like, they're recording from like a bus shelter in like, I don't know, it's wild, and it sounds a lot better once it comes out. But like, if you're hopping on a Zoom call, you're not running that type of thing, right? You're just you're trying to get the best possible input from a microphone, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is like real-time plugins aren't quite there yet with the quality. Like there's some good real-time denoisers and stuff like that, but they often add artifacts to your voice that you just don't want, and it's something that you can't babysit while you're in a call or something like that. So I tend to run a pretty raw setup just so that I can do all the processing in post if I want to. But yeah, it's funny. Often a space that looks like a good, clean recording space tends to be one of the worst things for sound, just because there's no furniture, there's things bouncing around, ends up being a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, that's why people like to it was common to like record in a closet with t-shirts hanging down or something like that. I brought an old couch into my office specifically to absorb some reflections.
Sweet. Yeah, my wife is a voice actor, and she, for the first 2 years of her career, had like microphone stands set up beside her, like as high as they would go, and then patio cushions draped over it. Like she was legitimately in like a 5.5 foot tall vocal booth.
Yeah.
Well, blanket fort. It's not a vocal booth. It's a blanket fort. Let's be real.
It's a blanket fort. Yeah.
Yeah. And she spent like 2 years in this, like no windows, no daylight. I don't know how she did it, but it sounded great. So.
And to be clear, that's not for soundproofing, correct?
Yeah. And we'll go through that a little bit more in just a minute here. But
cool.
Big thing with the acoustic noise, sort of what we're going on with like the sounds around your house, the baby crying in the other room, really the cheapest and most effective way to eliminate that is just to get closer to your microphone. It's kind of the quickest, easiest fix. You can make a really, really cheap microphone sound great just by getting right on the thing.
Yeah, that's something we often have. People have really nice microphones, and they're sitting like this far back from it, and you have to tell them like eat the microphone, or even like you go to like a wedding or something like that, and people don't know how to properly hold a microphone, and I'm always just hey, like I don't want to be that guy, but like eat the microphone.
Eat the mic.
People can't hear you.
Yeah, get on it. It's so funny. My wife Courtney was doing our school's auction, which is like a big deal for public schools, right? She was like the co-chair of the auction, so she had to speak, and she was on stage with the chair of the auction. She was like, "Do you have any tips for me for the microphone?" I was like, "Yeah, eat the mic, get like real close to the mic, and if you see your chair holding it out, like let her know as well. Like, make sure she knows that because there's like several speakers all the time. They hold it way far away. Then the audio guy's got to turn up the gain. Then you get the noise feedback or whatever. Whenever I'm in a venue, somebody's trying to speak and you're hearing gain, I just want to go up to them and be like, or the feedback. I just want to go up to them and be like, please, just just get the mic closer.
Yeah. Well, their inclination is like they hear the feedback, they pull the mic even further away. It's like, no. Like they're trying to compensate for you. So yeah, get nice and close. Now, if we have electrical noise, like we were talking about, ground loops, power issues, RF in your signal, these are way harder to diagnose and to fix. I know, Wes, we had some troubles with not with your audio, but with your camera for a long time, which we thought was coming from a hub. You're down this absolute rabbit hole of trying to figure out if it's getting the right power, if it's the right cable, ordering from Amazon constantly and swapping cables. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah. No fun doing that type of stuff, but like, I'll tell you, don't cheap out on cables and don't cheap out on a powered hub. Or if you have some like crappy little plug-in hub that doesn't even plug into power, get a good one, because that will eliminate a lot of your random issues that seem to pop up.
Totally. Now, the next thing is the advantage of getting nice and close to your microphone, which is the proximity effect. And so this is something that we use in audio to bring out some of that warmth. It's kind of how you get that radio sound. This happens more specifically on dynamic microphones. But yeah, as you get nice and close, it sounds like that AM radio show. As you back away, you start to lose some of that low end. You start to lose some of that high end. And it sounds a little bit more thin. So getting nice and close, you're going to get that really, really rich tone. The pitfalls with proximity are that you often get plosives and sibilants. And so plosives are the annoying P's that you hear. Probably hear them on like church pulpits all the time with the big it sounds absolutely awful to listen to. If you just turn the microphone a little bit off to the side, it's a really, really good way to avoid that as well.
Oh, interesting.
Plosives.
So you're just like kind of to the side of your mouth is ideal, so you don't get because a plosive comes from the wind coming out of your mouth, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it also helps with the sibilants. So sibilants is like the sharp S's. When you turn the microphone off axis slightly, the audio waves leaving, the sound waves leaving your mouth don't have enough physical energy to bounce off the diaphragm if the diaphragm is sideways. So if you put it slightly to the side or just off kilter a little bit, it will remove some of that sharpness as well. So I usually have my microphone kind of just coming in from the side, just to sort of warm up the sound a little bit.
Yeah, nice.
Big believer in placement is the most important thing that you can do. So if you get your placement set up of your microphone first, that's kind of the first step before deciding, do I need to go out and buy acoustic panels or anything like that? So I always try to set the placement of the microphone first and then jump into the sound treatment after that. And Scott, you were chatting about this. You were talking about this sound treatment versus soundproofing and how they're two very, very different things. And it's really frustrating because if you go on Amazon and type in soundproofing, you get all sorts of these like little Amazon panels that are just these little foam panels that you just stick to your wall.
Yeah.
Thin foam. And they're enticing because they're so cheap.
Yeah. You get like 12 of them for $50. Yeah.
Those do work because they're not soundproofing, right? They will absorb echo and reverb that's in your room, right?
Totally. Yeah. It's just tough when people want soundproofing. This really requires construction. It requires mass. It requires changing materials. Like the sound physically has to go through different materials to be absorbed. So that's why when you go to like a movie theater, if you were to look at a cross section of the walls between movie theaters, they have like brick and then metal and then drywall and then green glue, drywall, like all of these materials to help absorb that sound and continuously, and then air gaps too, to actually make little pockets where the air will vibrate in between and dissipate in there before going into another material. You need so much mass to stop sound, especially low frequencies, that these little foam panels aren't going to do anything. And I threw something in our little run sheet here. This is a bit nerdy, so buckle up. This is called the quarter wavelength rule, which is basically that all of sound waves look like, we can draw them out like sine waves. So they would look like, they go up and then they go down. That's sort of the cycle. If you think of like a beach ball sitting in the water in the ocean, the beach ball is almost still for about 75% of the wave until the wave comes by and moves it a couple of feet, and then it just sits there again for a few more seconds. So as a wave goes by, there's only a short part of that wave that actually has velocity, And we need velocity to turn sound energy into heat energy with the acoustic panels. So we basically need acoustic panels that are about a quarter of the wavelength that we're trying to get rid of, which is crazy because if you think those acoustic panels that you'd buy from Amazon, those would be good at stopping high frequencies like 15 kilohertz and above. So like the top end of the human audible spectrum, like the S's and the T's. That's why they sound good for like, if you clap, you don't hear as much of that like shrill sound bouncing back and forth.
Oh, okay.
But it's doing absolutely nothing for your low end, because if we were to take like, let's say 120 hertz sine wave, so a note that's like kind of in the middle low end of my voice, that wave is like 3 meters long. So a quarter of that, we'd need like a 2.5 foot thick acoustic panel to be able to stop that frequency. It's just like unfeasible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So low end is you could put mattresses on your wall and start to make a difference. It's really, really difficult to stop low end. So if you have issues in your space, like there's a garbage truck that comes by every Friday and it's super noisy and I can't get it out of my microphone, you're stuck with that. Like short of rebuilding your room, there's nothing you can do. And I hate to say that because it sounds discouraging.
As someone who did rebuild his room, I can tell you, go back to episode number 516, syntax.fm/516, and I built this whole office, and it is essentially the walls and the ceiling and the HVAC everything is like physically decoupled from the outside. It's hilarious, the exception of the windows. We have nobody behind us, so I don't have to worry about outside noise, but they're working on cutting some trees down in the forest behind us right now, so you might hear it. But yeah, it's nuts. You cannot just buy stuff and slap it on and make it soundproof. You can absorb the sounds, and I got rid of a lot of echo that way, but I literally had to hang the ceiling down and made sure that there was not a single screw going into the above, the joists above me.
Yeah.
They call that a room within a room. Construction. And there are some things you can do, I think, to reduce super loud sounds. If you have an air gap, right? Your door has an air gap underneath it. Man, sound's just coming right in there. Or even if you have really crappy old super thin doors, you could replace those with heavier, thicker doors and put like sweeps on that to help. For me, the biggest things that I always had a trouble with in the past house was we had really super old windows that were not quiet at all, and we had really loud venting system, so you could hear throughout the whole house. And there's nothing you can do about the venting system besides building a sound trap. The windows you would have to replace. But again, if you're going through all these lengths, you might be wondering like if it makes more sense to just buy like a vocal booth. They make these things like studio bricks, and they're not cheap by any means. But if you're a professional and you need professional sound and you can't redo your room.
Yeah, my wife has one.
Which one?
We have the Studio Bricks Vocal
Oh, you
Edition.
do have the Studio Bricks.
Yeah, it's the actual Studio Bricks voiceover edition. And so it's like, I want to say 5 feet by 3 feet. And it's double walled. It's really thick. Like the door is probably 350 pounds. It's just significant chunky thing, but it looks great and it sounds great. And it's kind of the perfect marriage between soundproofing and sound treatment, because it's soundproofed really well from the outside, like 45 decibels of reduction, which is really nice. But then it also has really nice sound treatment inside to make it not sound like a little box. This is actually one of the challenges with those Amazon panels, for instance. If you were to go buy 1,000 of them, cover your entire space with these Amazon panels, what's going to happen is you're going to have no top end in the reflections only. And so a recording is really the source plus the reflections. And so if your reflections are coming back and they have no top end in them, now your recording just sounds really woofy and muffled. Like it's going to start to sound a little bit just disproportionately muddy. And so it really is about kind of balancing, understanding how they work and then balancing that in your space.
I bought some GTK, I believe is the brand, panels, and they're not like foam panels or whatever. They're boxes. They are thick boxes, audio foam in them, hard constructed. And the most important ones for me are the corner ones, because what, like corners can create some crazy reflections, right?
Yeah. I had that. Can I tell you about my problem? Maybe I can move my camera right here. If you can see above me, you see I have this little lip above my desk, and I would spend all this time on my soundproof office, and when I sat right here, I got a resonance, like a hum in my ear. I couldn't pick it up in the thing, and it was just like coming back at me, and it was so annoying. And it was because I was sitting in the exact spot. So I ended up putting, I just bought some like really thick felt, and I cut them and put them at an angle, and it sounds so much better.
Oh, that's awesome.
The ones I have out were GIK, by the way, not GTK.
Okay, sick. Yeah, so Scott, you're mentioning corners are really bad. They can be awful. Also, direct reflections are a good spot to start. So if you are thinking, hey, my space sounds a little bit echoey, a good way to think of this is think of your mouth as a laser pointer and all of the walls as mirrors, and whatever would be the first bounce back from your source. So in my case, I have speakers on my desk, and I want to soundproof those so that I'm not getting reflections off my walls. So thinking of the speakers as the laser pointer, I want to do the first wall on my left, the first wall on my right. My desk even is a massive source of reflections. The ceiling above me is a little bit of a source. I don't care about anything behind me because once the sound goes back there, it's hitting the walls, it's hitting the things I got in the back of the room. By the time those reflections get back to me, they're diffused enough. It's just sort of these first reflections that are really the ones that are causing issues. So that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and there's like you said, with the stuff behind you, right? It's hitting all that stuff. If you've ever been in an empty room, you've moved all of your furniture and you clap, it sounds crazy in there. So like that is the same scenario. You put your stuff in, it sounds very different.
I have a question. Does even like pictures and stuff matter? Because when I built my office at the cottage, I put all this tongue and groove paneling in, and I basically built a wooden box, and it sounds great in there. I have no treatments at all, and I'm wondering if it's because of the tongue and groove have all these little indentations in them, and if are the sound waves hitting that?
Yeah, that could help. I think probably the main win with that space would just be the fact that it's wood, because wood is a relatively absorptive material. Yeah, so it's probably doing a little bit to absorb it. In general, like irregularities in the shape are really going to help. Okay. If you look at the back of a recording studio, they have, usually on the back wall, they have what's called a diffuser, which is like a slat wall, like how do I describe this for the audio listener? This is like a bunch of vertical panels that are all really thin, spaced maybe about an inch apart, and they're at varying depths. So some might be like 8 inches deep, some might be a foot deep, some might be like an inch deep. And these are actually built based on really specific calculations that determine how to properly catch the sound and break it apart and scatter it. This is called diffusion in audio. So we want to like basically take those really high pressure sound waves and then disperse them in the room evenly so they don't come back as an actual reflection. Yeah, and they're really cool, but they're really expensive.
I had no
they're
idea.
Like
I thought they were
super
just for
custom
style. That's cool.
They look awesome too. Yeah. So yeah, irregularities definitely help. Any sort of odd shapes, you just want to avoid basically 4 straight walls. That can be really difficult for soundproofing or for sound treatment. A question that I hear a lot too is about the good old fashioned egg crates. Do egg crates work for sound treatment? They do have some irregular characteristics to them in that they have an interesting shape. So the shape may work to do some level of diffusion, but the answer is no. Your egg crates are doing literally nothing for your sound. 2 reasons because of this.
Interesting.
So actually, I had a friend in high school that worked in a kitchen, and he would save up egg crates from like their Sunday brunch, and he'd bring home like 2 or 3 at a time. And he did his whole drum shed out in his backyard. He brought me, and he's like, "Yo, dude, look, it's like completely soundproof." And I didn't have the heart to break it to him, but there are 2 reasons why egg crates don't do anything. So one, the material is pretty thin. So we know we're only affecting, we're really only affecting frequencies like 16 or 17K above, which people in our 30s, we probably don't even hear 17K and above at this point. So if it was affecting anything, it's such a small fraction. And then if you think of the absorption coefficient of that material, it's not very absorptive. It's, recycled cardboard. It's decent. It's going to do nothing for your sound. So while it may look cool to have egg crates plastered all over your wall. It's just not that effective.
May look cool. You know what we did in high school is we got some like carpet padding from a construction site, some thick old carpet padding, and then we hung sheets of it from the ceiling in my basement, which probably did absolutely nothing. It might have cut down on just a tiny bit of reflections or something. It did not do anything. But we thought it was doing something at the time, being 16.
Yeah. Awesome.
One last thing before we get into the video stuff. USB mics or an XLR mic with an interface. I think that's something just about a lot of people ask us.
Up until this week, my opinion on this has been very divided. I'm reviewing a microphone right now that I'm really stoked about. It's the Shure MV6. I'll link that in the show notes. So USB microphones are way more efficient. You plug in a USB-C to your computer and you're set to go. That's it. You can even plug your headphones into the microphone, which is great. So you don't need a fancy sound card or anything like that. You plug your microphone in, you're off to the races. For the vast majority of people, this is going to be perfect, especially when you pair that with getting good signal to noise ratio. We actually had Taylor on this last week, and in his episode, he had a $30 microphone from Target, and the thing sounded awesome. And it's because he's holding the microphone right on his face, he's eating the mic, and it's a $30 USB microphone. So I actually want to check out that microphone for my channel because I was really impressed with how it sounded. I usually try to avoid like holding a microphone because you get massive handheld noise, but I didn't hear it in his recording. So I'm pretty impressed with that $30 Target microphone. I think for the vast majority of people listening to this video or listening to this podcast, USB microphone is going to be more than adequate for any of your needs. I don't think having a dedicated interface is necessary these days, although you will get a slight bump in quality when you switch to a dedicated interface. It's just you're separating the components into two different dedicated parts. They're both doing their job. You get significantly better quality, but are you going to notice this over a Google Meet call? Probably not.
Dope. Thanks, Randy. Let's get into the video section, then we can talk about some packages you've put together for us.
Sick. Yeah, so video, it's funny, when you work with people and they log into their call, and they're using their laptop webcam and it's pointed up at the sky and all you see is like the top of their face and then like 6 feet of headroom above them. Just take a second to put your camera in the right spot. So the first section I have here is composition, which is just getting yourself framed nicely within the shot. You want to have sort of a medium close up, a couple inches of space above your head. You don't need to go down as far as your waist or anything like that, but just you want to look nice and centered within your shot. And a good rule of thumb is to have the camera relatively at eye level. Some people like to shoot from a little bit above or a little bit below. It does get challenging as a work from home setup when you're balancing monitors. And I know, Wes, you had challenges with this, like where the heck does the camera go? Because I have this monitor, I love this monitor. I have that one, I love that. There's not a space for my camera unless it's like way up there, just pointing straight down at me. So that can be really, really challenging. It's going to be one of those things you have to sort of prioritize. What's the most important thing to you? Is it looking good on camera, or is it, your sick developing setup?
Yeah, it's a never ending thing. Actually, right now I'm testing out this BenQ monitor, which is 3:2 aspect ratio, so it's square. And I don't know if you notice or not, but my camera is much more in front of me. Usually I'm a bit more angled, and it's because I'm not putting the camera on top of it. I'm not slamming my monitor down super low so that the camera doesn't look too high. But then also it's wide as well, and also some people put the camera right in front of them and then do two monitors on either side, and all day you're looking to the side and you're gonna.
Let me say, Wes. So I don't have my camera set up in the middle, and I only have one monitor. I took a photo of it. We can include in the show notes. My camera is right here, obviously. My monitor is right to the side of it. So my monitor is right here, and it isn't directly over the top of my laptop, but it's pretty dang close. And to me, that is not I'm not turning my head. I'm almost shifting my whole body when I'm working. So it doesn't feel like I'm here to here, but again, I don't have two monitors or whatever. And my camera's not directly in the middle. My camera is positioned off to the left. My monitor's positioned slightly off to the right. And so right now I'm like staring into my monitor right now. It works for me. I'll include a photo of it in the show notes.
Sweet. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's the last thing they think about. They get their whole setup ready to go. They're working, they're happy, and then they got to get on a call, and they're looking. They're like, oh, which camera am I using? Either it's the one on their monitor on their laptop. It can be really tough. So just a little bit of thought into positioning yourself nicely in the frame goes a really long way. And then when we move into lighting, I would say windows are your best friend. Definitely try to get a window either beside you or in front of you. I have a massive window off to my left side here, and so if I were to not have my light on, I would look pretty backlit, which isn't ideal because then it lowers the contrast of the video, makes you look a little bit washed out on camera. So I have a massive light right in front of me here to kind of make me pop out a little bit from the backdrop. But if I didn't have a light, I would probably end up turning my desk more towards the window just to get a bit of that natural light coming in. So you want either the Rembrandt lighting, which means coming in slightly from the side, or direct flat lighting is another sort of easy win. And it looks good all the time. It'll look nice on calls. I would say just avoid the backlighting.
Can they just like get like a lamp or something like that? Or should they be getting like a key light? Or are we going to be talking about that?
Yeah, we'll get into some of the stuff that you can buy. I think you use what you have. It doesn't need to be fancy. Modern day cameras, especially cameras built into your like computer, tend to be really good at correcting for white balance and stuff like that. So you turn on a bright orange lamp beside you and it's going to make you look natural no matter what. So definitely use what you have on hand.
I have a question. You said no backlighting. I actually do have a backlight right here. Is that a problem?
Well, you have a $4,000 camera.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you have a super, super nice camera. I actually have a backlight behind me as well. So I'm breaking my own rule, but I'm doing it in a way
I see what
that
you're saying now. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just giving me this glow on the side of my face. And if I'm wearing a dark shirt, it'll kind of separate me from the backdrop. But I'm doing that knowing the rule. I wouldn't just have a backlight.
Okay, so yeah, the same goes along with knowing the rules before you break them. I do feel like that is such a big thing that people underestimate, especially if they're I know not everybody's trying to have a professional setup, but just to have a good setup, I think everybody underestimates light. I have a huge natural window here, but I also have a light here, 2 side lights, and then a backlight just to fill this space. I know that these 2 are just for color effects, backlights to pull me off. But one thing that's really hard, because you didn't touch on this, is glasses. People with glasses.
Oh.
If I have the light in front of me, it looks like this. If you're looking my eyes, you can't even see my eyes. The reflections are so bad. There's even like a glass door in front of me that I have to cover up because otherwise. So for me, I have to do one key and then like one fill over here and then just not turn my head in the directions of the lights.
Oh, that's great. Wes, what do you have for your setup?
For my lights, I just have a single light. I don't know what it is. It's like one of these big square like key lights, I guess you would call it. And I have that on a little button right here. And I hit the button and I can turn it off right now. So see, that's off. And there we go. It's on. It's very subtle, but it kind of just fills out my face. Yeah, it looks good. It's a little further back right now just because I'm playing around with my monitors. They're usually a bit closer. I don't like it at all because I find it too bright. It hurts my eyes, but I have it on anytime I'm filming a video and then I just hit the button to turn it off.
Yeah. Hey, here's a treat for people on video. I'll turn off all 3 of my lights at once. So this is the key light. So that's without the key light. This is without the fill. And then this is without the backlight.
Wow.
Which the backlight's really getting a a side of my head.
This is a very expensive camera that does very well with low light and crappy light. And it's but it looks so much better with your lights added on.
Yeah.
And I have a full big window open right here.
Yeah.
I have like a great low light performance camera. Yeah. And then you turn it all back on. Ta-da! It looks so much better. Yeah. And this will make that impact will be tenfold on a worse camera.
One quick thing about lighting, if you are looking into getting some lights, we'll talk about the different packages later. Panels are great because it's just a box shooting light into your space. You can use them to sort of bounce light off your walls just to sort of fake a window. I wouldn't look into ring lights because ring lights are a weird thing to me because they sort of got a ton of hype, but they're really for like macro photography. Like that's where they come from. where you'd put the camera inside the ring and then take a picture of something
Okay.
completely lit all the way around it. If you're putting a ring light 4 feet away from you, it's not providing the effect of a ring light. So ring lights get so much hype on like TikTok and stuff like that, but a panel is going to do probably a better job because it's you have more fixtures in it generally. I want to dispel the hype behind ring lights a little bit.
Yeah, and you can see the weird eyeballs too.
Yeah, you get the
Yes.
weird eyeballs. I was at a dance battle, Randy, and it was like semi outside. It was very bright, and a guy filming had like the whole ring light and camera inside the middle on this little like that. Like, bro, that is not doing anything. Like, what is what's the plan here?
You're competing with the sun.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Let's chat cameras for a second. So this is another one of those things that is a big sort of belief of mine, is that resolution is like, it's the last thing you should be prioritizing when you're looking for a camera. Everybody says, hey, caught in 4K, caught in 4K. You know, oh, this guy did this, he caught in 4K. TikTok is entirely 1080. So no one's on TikTok getting caught in 4K. Yeah, you can upload a 4K video, it's going to downsample that video to 1080. So it's just
What
4K.
is this word you're saying? Cotton 4K?
Caught in 4K. Caught in 4K is like a meme when somebody did something and they have been caught doing it. If people say
okay.
if it's been filmed on their phone camera or something, if they've been
caught
caught
in 4K.
in 4K. Yeah.
Yeah. Cotton 4K, yeah. Like cotton candy. Yeah, so it's a funny thing. Like everybody really stresses about 4K, and we record this podcast in 1080, and like 1080 is totally fine. You're not hurting anybody by filming in 1080 or getting a 1080 webcam, especially if the price is obviously it's gonna be much cheaper. So resolution, least important thing. I always say 720p camera with really good lighting will look way better than 4K done poorly. And not all 4Ks are created equally. So in one of my first weeks working with Syntax, I went over to Wes's house and we were checking out different streaming services and how they would treat your camera feed. And codecs are hugely important in how good the image quality looks. Like we looked at, we must have checked out 6 or 7 different services, and there were really bad ones and really good ones. And it was the same feed being sent to all of them. So codec is definitely hugely important.
Yeah, it's crazy the bit rate, that some of them were so aggressive with the bit rate, and there would just like specifically this blue sound panel behind me, I would have banding on it because there's a slight gradient on it, and the ones that were more aggressive with the lower bit rate, presumably to save money on storage fees, you could definitely see it.
Yeah, even tweaking my OBS setup because I've been recording primarily on OBS now. Man, just turning the knobs on all of those things, codec, bitrate, all this stuff made such a huge impact. You'd make one small change and it would look terrible. Then you'd make another small change and 10 minutes of video would be 10 gigabytes. And you're like, what is the in between here?
Yeah, and then so another thing to think, 30, 60 frames. Most people are filming either 30 or 60 frames right now. It doesn't really matter for your calls or anything like that. If you're looking for a webcam, I would just look for one that looks good. Check a lot of YouTuber reviews because that's going to give you a good idea of how they perform, especially in low light or changing light. That's another big one. If a cloud comes over your house, is the camera going to auto correct to the right exposure for you? So I would say if you're looking for a specific camera for your setup, you don't want to use the internal baked-in webcam, definitely just do a bit of YouTube research. That's going to be one of the best tools.
Should we move to packages?
Let's talk about these packages. Yeah, so I've
Yes,
broken
let's
this
talk
down.
about these packages. Randy, yes. I've been waiting for you to talk about these packages. Yeah.
Wes titled this episode How to Look Good and Sound Good for $10, $100, and $1,000. $10 is really tough. I would say if you're trying to look and sound good for $10, go get yourself a coffee from Starbucks and then just get really close to your microphone. That's the whole tip for $10. There's not a lot that you can do.
You get a lamp from your bedroom. You get you hang up maybe some t-shirts around your desk.
Yeah.
And,
Okay. Yeah.
Because lighting, right? Like you use the MacBook Pro webcam, put a couple nice lamps on your face. Maybe
How about this?
throw a t-shirt underneath your keyboard so you don't have the vibrations going through.
How about this? Instead of a couple of nice lamps on your face, you can open up a web page and put like a yellowish, orangish color at full blastness and just get your monitor
Just
nice
use
and
light
close.
mode.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. All right, so like I've changed this a little bit to a $50 package, $150 package, and then you're sort of like 500 to 1,000. Like you're a big spender. You want to really deck out your setup. So for the $50 package, a couple of different microphones that I've tested myself and really enjoyed, sort of around the $50 to $70 price point. I should say, in this $50 package, we're not even talking cameras. Use your webcam. Use the internal baked-in one in your laptop, or if you have an external monitor that has one. Cameras below $50, it's just not going to work. So the FeelWorld PM1 is a $50 USB and XLR microphone. It's really great because you can either go USB-C, or if you feel like upgrading down the road and getting an interface, you can get an audio interface with an XLR cable, and you're going to get that nice graduation into the next step of audio quality. So I like recommending tools that won't limit people in the long run. So FeelWorld PM1 is a good option. The Fifine K688 is another great option. It's about $70. That's probably one of the most popular USB and XLR combination microphones on Amazon.
It looks nice too.
Yeah, it looks nice. My only gripe with that microphone is that the handling noise is awful. So if you are one of the people who want to plug in your headphones into the microphone itself, if you move, like I was demoing this on my channel, I was moving my head with Apple earbuds plugged in, and you could hear every time I shifted. So maybe plug into your laptop with your headphones and just use the microphone. Try not to touch it. That's going to work a lot better for you.
I was always having an issue of just bumping my desk or my mic or anything. I had to like change how I acted. So yeah.
The one thing with the FeelWorld one is it's RGB to like presumably attract the gamers.
Yeah.
It's awful for continuity if you want to make a cut in your video because it shows it. Also, I don't think that like RGB is very professional, you know? Like it's the same thing when you get on a meeting with somebody and they have like a gamer chair, like one of those baby car seat chairs.
The baby car seat chairs. Oh man.
Yeah, I have a microphone right beside me. The Shure SM, what is this? MV6. This is the one that I was talking about earlier. There's no RGB on this thing, and that's like my main takeaway in the video is it looks great and it sounds great. That's actually in the next package, so we'll get to that. But FeelWorld and Fifine microphones are great. I would say the main thing I would look out for is look out for peripheral companies that are making microphones, and buy your microphones from audio companies that are making stuff in this price point. There's a big difference between companies that try to create high quality audio and have never done it before versus companies that have, like Shure, for instance, has a 100-year reputation. And then they're like, hey, let's make a cheap microphone that brings all this technology that we have. They know what compromises they can make and what sacrifices they can make to make a really, really good product at an affordable price. And in my experience, these peripheral companies, I'm not going to name them, tend to fail when it comes to quality. They make really flashy products.
Is
they
it?
don't
No,
make
name
good
it.
sound
Is it
products.
Elgato?
It's
I think
Elgato.
It's Elgato.
Okay.
It's Elgato. It's Logitech with the Blue Yeti. It is Razer with their Siren. There's a few other ones that they have. There's HyperX. They make gaming headsets, not a microphone company. There's a few, yeah. If you see bright, shining colors on the microphone, like Wes said, probably it's not for you.
Wait, the Blue Yeti is by Logitech.
Yeah, they got
Yeah,
bought.
they bought it.
They got bought. Interesting, because I have a high-end Blue microphone that one of the vintage ones that I love dearly. But wow.
Yeah, the Yeti is an interesting microphone. It's like 15 years old almost. Like it's an old microphone, and they haven't done much to change it all along. So it's definitely wouldn't be in my recommendations. But let's move into the $150 price point. So this is where we're starting to add in some video stuff here. So in this package, I would say get one of the same mics. You don't need to upgrade the microphone from the other ones, but we have about $80 to spend now on lighting. And I think lighting is the next big step here. So I would say look for a Newer, is it the company? Newer panels on Amazon.
That's what I have.
Same.
Yeah, sick. Yeah, you can get like a 2-panel package for $70. They come on stands that go down to the ground, or you can get ones that clip to the back of your desk too. If you find that you're getting hot spots on your face because these lights are LED panels, you may have some like hot spots. What you can do is actually shoot them at, let's say you're butted up against a wall, shoot that light at the wall and use the wall as a diffuser. It's kind of a nice way to make a cheap light look a lot better. But definitely something that's dimmable is key, because then you can dim them. A lot of them will be bicolor as well, which means you can go from like daylight to tungsten. So you can get it a bit more yellow if you want to have a bit more of kind of a moody vibe.
I have mine about, mostly yellow, because I'm a somewhat pale person. So I find that it makes me feel a little bit warmer. And I'm also actually, like you said, I am mostly pointing it at the wall to fuse it off a little bit, because it can get a little hot, like you said.
I've had this one for quite a while, and at my old house, I would do what you said, which is I bounced it off the ceiling because I had like an angled. I was in like the top floor of a house, and I bounced it right off the wall, and it filled my face really nicely. I think that has the added benefit of it not like blasting your eyes out as well.
Yeah, so let's move into the sort of $500 to $1,000. This is the premium package. This is the person who wants to look super pro when they get on their Zoom calls. I would recommend this microphone, the Shure MV6. I've talked about it a couple of times. Just really, really solid metal build, very chunky, no LEDs, and it sounds phenomenal. So really stoked with that. If you think, hey, I want an interface because maybe I want to record music or something like that on the side, I will link a microphone/interface bundle that you could look into, which is pretty good. I don't know if it's like worth it to go that route, because it's a lot more cumbersome to have other devices on your desk, but something to think about. In terms of webcam, I don't know this space, and this space changes very, very, very quickly. So a quick trip to YouTube to check out what's the latest and greatest. And Wes, I saw you were looking at the Insta360. Yes.
Yeah, they sent me
these
it.
look
I still
awesome.
haven't really used it, but it's like, sorry, I have used it, but it's amazing how much better it is, because I've gotten sent webcams for years, and they're always like, that's kind of crappy. This is the first one where I'm like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I saw that they have a second version of it, which does not have the moving gimbal, which honestly, I'd probably go for that, because I don't feel like I would care to like walk around. I don't know. The moving gimbal seems nice, but it seems a bit gimmicky to me, I guess, if you're
not
if
for
you're
your
using it
desk,
for Zoom
right?
calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could just move the camera and point it where you're gonna be. I think if you need to like flip it down and show your desk, that's kind of nice. But yeah, it is kind of a gimmick, I think.
Oh yeah, it does that flip down thing. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, desk view, which is good if you're doing like electronics tutorials or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I would say if you're looking for a webcam, just make sure you check the reviews online. Again, as I mentioned before, deprioritize resolution and just look for really nice compression and low light performance. So the best way to do that, just through some YouTube reviews. Another option you could go is using an old DSLR, getting a cheap DSLR, like a used one with a cam link. Those are about $100. So that's going to be a pretty good option. It'll give you a lot more control over your image. But I think in today's day and age, it's hard to beat tethering a cell phone. That's like, cell phone cameras look so good for the money you spend on them, and everybody has one kicking around in their pocket. So I would definitely recommend, if you're looking for a camera, try your phone. It might just be the best option you have.
Yeah, I wonder at what point does it get cheaper to buy like an old iPhone, like a 2 or 3 year old iPhone for a couple $100 versus going to buy a DSLR. A lot of people might have a DSLR, but I always think about that, because at a certain point, it looks good enough. You know, the cameras on these things are really, really good, and they don't get worse over time.
Yeah. They also have like incredible, they call it computational photography, or I guess computational videography, which is that they auto adjust to the different surroundings so seamlessly. Like it's, you turn it on, it's going to look great every single time. So that is a lot of mental relief from having like when I have a DSLR, I have to set it up every time I turn it on. I have to make it look right for the surroundings. So that part kind of sucks.
Yeah. Is there a common DSLR that is good? I always wondered this. I'm like, is there like an old DSLR that's really good for a webcam that's like $250? Do you know of any that people are like, oh, get this one? They're a dime a dozen on eBay. I guess
know.
It's lenses though, hey?
It's lenses for sure.
It's almost always lenses, yeah.
Yeah. I would say if you're looking at older cameras, just make sure they have I think it's called UHS support, which means they can act as a webcam on your computer. So you can actually get most Sony cameras, you can just plug in a USB cable and use it as a webcam via USB. which is really nice.
Oh, yeah.
That way you don't have to do the whole cam link setup with, the HDMI. So that's definitely an option.
Maybe not in the price range Wes was suggesting, but I know the Sony Alpha A6000 you can get for like $650, which is with a lens, and that doesn't sound cheap, but as far as like DSLRs with a lens, that is pretty decently cheap for what it is.
Yeah, and then you also have a nice camera if you want to do any camera stuff.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Then to upgrade your lighting, I would suggest getting a panel softbox. So you can get like what's called a parabolic softbox, which is like those big kind of cone-shaped softboxes. I have one in my space, and I wish that I didn't get it. They're technically like the most natural looking light from a softbox because they avoid hotspots really well. If I were buying a new setup today, I'd get like a panel with a panel softbox, like a much slimmer version. That way you can kind of get it pushed closer up against a wall. It doesn't take up quite as much space, and it's kind of that compromise, right? You're figuring out what's going to work for the setup and not be totally invasive because it's a home office. So that would be my suggestion there. And then for sound treatment, get yourself some moving blankets from Amazon. You can buy a set of like 6 or 7 moving blankets for $100, and then hang them over things, whatever you have. Like put up put up something, hang a moving blanket over it. That's kind of the easiest way to do that.
Nice.
That's a good tip.
What about mic stand? So I know, so we have a mic. You mentioned holding it can cause a lot of noise. What about stand? Are we talking? Because like Wes and I both use kind of, I think mine's like a pneumatic, not like spring one. Is there anything you recommend for on-desk mic stands?
Yeah. I would say avoid these desk mount mic stands, like the ones that will often come shipped with microphones. These are like the kind of 6-inch articulating mic stand that would just sit on your desk. Desks are awful for sound transmission, especially for you devs who are doing all these keystrokes all day long. That's going to go straight, Devin Hard, that's going to go straight through your microphone if you have it on a stand. Getting a boom arm that clips to the edge of your desk is one step above that, where it's more material that it has to go through, so you're likely going to have less sound transmission getting into your microphone. If you want to go one step further, get a floor mount mic stand, like a traditional music stand that you would have for like a band.
Wow.
Have that beside your desk and boom your mic over. That's going to give you the most isolation, but it's also less practical. It's one other thing to have to vacuum around.
Yeah. And what about shock mount? Because mine is screwed into my desk, but I've gotten rid of all the dunk, 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 dunk from typing, which when I first started making tutorials, I kept a t-shirt underneath my keyboard because I was always doing that. But getting a shock mount helped it a lot.
Yeah. It's tough if the microphone doesn't come with one because it can be really difficult to retrofit those. Like a lot of microphones don't have a body that would just fit any old shock mount. So
yeah.
Yeah, my shock mount is very oddly shaped for this microphone specifically. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like the old broadcast style too.
Yeah.
Before you know it, your whole office is turned into like a production studio. And I don't want that either, like those huge parabolic lights.
I want that.
I don't want that. I don't want anything touching the ground, knock it over, kids hit it. I want everything bolted to my desk. So it's always like a trade-off between probability. Even with the mic arm, I probably tried 6 different mic arms from this one, and I tried all the low profile ones, but they got in the way of my typing, and I tried a lot of the high profile ones, and they weren't coming in at the right angle. And I returned them all, and I went back to my old faithful here, which is a Heil mic arm.
I have this Vivo one, which is pneumatic, like I said, but it has some I'll share this link in a second. What's crazy about this one is that the stupid mic arm comes with instead of a standard threaded screw end for any normal thing, it came with this stupid mic clip, and I had to retrofit a actual correctly threaded.
Oh,
it was so dumb. I don't even know why or how, but yeah, it was super obnoxious.
I have their monitor arms. I'm pretty sure Vivo. They're good quality, especially the pneumatic ones that are air.
Yeah.
So
that's
nice.
what this is, and it's great because when you put it somewhere, it does not move.
It stays.
Yeah.
Yeah. After I left Wes's studio, I came home and I bolted everything to my desk. I got it. So
Yes.
I was so inspired by your setup because like you have it so you can just like boop, everything goes up and it all moves at the exact same speed. So I did that. I got my monitors mounted on my desk. I've got my camera clipped on to my desk with like a massive friction arm. Oh yeah, look at this. This is great. Wes is disappearing underneath his desk at the moment. I got my microphone tethered to it so everything can just move at one thing. Oh, Scott, you have it as well?
Oh yeah, I'm standing now.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I got the presets. Let me just sit down. Yes,
Yeah.
I did try to mount my camera to the same. I have like a single post right through my desk that all my monitors hang off of, and my light hangs off of. And I was like, I'm gonna also hang the camera, but it's once you get out too far on like a what do you call that? Not a pivot point. It's too wobbly.
Yeah.
Every little bump of the desk makes the camera shake like crazy.
I have 3 separate arms. Yeah, 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good call. All right, well that's super helpful. Hopefully there's some good tips in there for people to up their game when they're having meetings. It seems silly to care about what you look like on a Zoom call, but like if you think like if you were meeting in person, you would care what you're wearing. You know, when you go to somebody's office, you do care what you're wearing and how you appear. And quite honestly, it's really hard to communicate with people when they have poor audio, video over a Zoom or whatever call that you're doing, because you just don't get all of those in-person cues and tells and whatnot. And when somebody has good audio, video, you feel just so much more comfortable talking to them.
I wonder how many people have lost job opportunities from bad looking cameras. Like how many people have been between 2 different candidates and they subconsciously went with the one that just looked better?
Yeah, subconsciously.
There's got to be some numbers there.
Yeah,
sure.
I would imagine that makes a lot of sense. It is funny, every time I hop on a call with non-tech folks or even tech folks, everybody's instantly like, whoa, what do you do?
All right, let's move into the last section here, which is sick picks and shameless plugs. Randy, I hope you came prepared with a sick pick for us.
I did come prepared. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Yeah, I can't be the one that's unprepared here. So my sick pick is a creator on TikTok, also on YouTube, called Etymology Nerd. And I don't know if you've seen this guy, but he basically will take a word and just give you the entire history of where it came from. And he does these really cool sort of like a theme section of words. So like for instance, he was talking about how all these different sailing terms exist in business culture. So like know the ropes, run a tight ship, on board, all hands on deck, smooth sailing, change course, leeway. And he's saying that this comes back because English was spread by sailors. And so there's a whole ton of sailing etymology in business culture.
Crazy.
It's so cool. And he does these like quick little 60-second hits. So well researched, so well spoken, really, really cool creator.
Yeah. If people are wondering why you get on TikTok at all, like I know some people are like, I'm never going to get on TikTok. This is like the peak type of TikTok content. To me, this is like what you go there for, is this type of thing.
And shameless plug, what would you like to plug to the audience?
Shameless plug. Yeah, I'd love to plug my YouTube channel. It's just YouTube at Randy Rektor, Rektor, and I nerd out hard on there. So I'm going to be posting some more videos of some microphone reviews. I've got 5 or 6 in the queue ready to go. So yeah, if you want to nerd out, learn about audio, it's a fun place to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Randy. Appreciate all your knowledge and whatnot. I'm glad that we could pack this up into an episode and share it with everybody else.
Yeah, sick. Thanks for having me, guys. This is fun.
Anytime. Right. Thanks so much, Randy.
Peace.
Peace.